you might be able to see the Senate Overlook, which is a little round room structure that has a museum behind it. It's an overlook. And so the human history here at Crater Lake is rather fascinating because 7,700 years ago and even before, this mountain was known as the home of Lao, the god of the below world, to our Native American tribes. And the legend goes that Lao liked to come out on his mountain and look around at the overworld. And he looked down into the Klamath Valley and he saw a beautiful young maiden. There's always a beautiful young maiden in these stories. But he saw this girl and he fell in love with her instantly. So he asked her to marry him. He said, if you will come marry me and live with me in the below world, you will live forever. But seeing as she was a sensible young girl and didn't want to live in the below world for eternity, she said no. Well, he was very angry and he vowed to destroy the Klamath people with fire. So he started throwing rocks the size of mountains and fire and ash down on the people. And the people were frightened. So two medicine men came up this mountain to see if they could throw themselves into the fiery mountain to appease Lao. Well, there was another god watching. His name is Skel, and Skel lives over on Mount Shasta. And Skel is the god of the overworld. He saw these brave people and he had compassion for them. So he decided to fight Lao for them, and they threw rocks the size of mountains back and forth, and fire rolled down the side of the mountain. But finally Skel won. He prevailed, and he pushed Lao back down into the below world and caved the mountain in on top of him. And to bring peace back to this area, he brought large rain clouds and snow clouds to fill this lake and bring peace back to this area. And now all you see of Lao is his war helmet, which we call Wizard Island. So this has been a very sacred place to the native people since before the mountain erupted. So they never told anybody about this lake. And it wasn't until 1853 that people who were non-Native American saw this place for the first time. So what was going on in 1853 in Northern California and Southern Oregon? Gold rush, exactly. And this young miner, he had heard a rumor, a story about one of those proverbial lost mines, the lost cabin mine. And he and his friends were searching through the untracked forest, and they got lost. So what happens when you get lost and you want to get above a forest? You go up the side of a mountain. So John Wesley Hillman, which is what this guy's name was, he got on his trusty mule and he climbed up the side of this mountain. He must have dozed off because all of a sudden he found himself waking out of a doze, and he looked down over the side of the rim and saw the lake. He said, if I had been riding a blind mule, I would have fallen to death and destruction. So a mule discovered Crater Lake. Now, there were other finders of Crater Lake. It didn't make as big of a splash as John Wesley Hillman wanted to, and people kept finding Crater Lake over and over again. You know, you've got the scary-looking Chauncey Nye, who found it in 1862. You've got the Army captain, Captain Franklin Sprague, who found it in 1865. But it wasn't until 1869 that Crater Lake got its final name. James Sutton came up here. By 1869, Crater Lake had become something of a tourist attraction. He had a real desire to see and explore this place, and he especially wanted to get out to Wizard Island, which he did because he brought his own boat. when you put something in print, it's going to stick. Now, those were the finders of Crater Lake. Our founder is a man by the name of William Gladstone Steele, and his story really started when he's a young man and his mother had wrapped his school lunch in a newspaper. And in that newspaper was an article about Crater Lake. And like of a lot of us, he said, I'm going to go there someday, which he did. He made it up here in 1885, and he was so inspired that he spent the next 17 years of his life to the point where the senators in Congress called him a crackpot and would duck into doorways to get away from him. He attempted for 17 years to get this made into a national park. Thankfully, with a little help from a nudge from Theodore Roosevelt, Crater Lake was made into a national park in 1902. Now, that wasn't the end of the story for Will Steele. Will Steele, first concessionaire, he built the Crater Lake Lodge between 1909 and 1913. He named all these crazy features around us like Wizard Island and Devil's Backbone. He's the guy that stocked the lake with fish. He wanted to attract people up here, and what better way to get them up here than to come up and fish? So he's also the reason we have osprey and eagles, all these raptors up here, because without the fish, they wouldn't be up here. And he was our second superintendent. So we call Will Steele the founder of Crater Lake, and these other gentlemen the finders of Crater Lake. What a great and rich history we've got here, and a unique history as well. At our next stop, we're going to head on over to our next stop. At that stop, we're going to talk about the third facet of Crater Lake that makes it the gem of the Cascades. We're going to talk about our water and why it's so blue. So let's head on over to Chasky Bay.